I personally did not watch that live because I was at the gym doing some sparring. So my workout always comes before watching someone else fight. Um, but I did catch some of the clipped highlights on YouTube. And of course, I think we've all heard the news now that um, both Max Holloway and Robert Whitaker, sort of perennial favorites, they both unfortunately lost. Unfortunately for them and for those of us who are rooting for them, because I think they're both really likable MMA fighters, uh, and very well known as well. But I'm really interested to hear from you guys. What did you enjoy about that UFC 308 card? What were your favorite moments? Please share them with me. Who do we have joining us? And welcome. It's always really interesting for me to hear what you guys thought of a fight or have on your mind regarding the fights. Um, Personally, as I said in my breakdown, I was rooting for Max, but I knew, my heart was with Max, my brain was with Ilya. Um, I think it wasn't just Ilya's boxing skills per se that had him win the fight. It was also his patience and his mental preparation. Oh, great, Shug, you're here. Okay, so greetings to you. Yes, I only saw highlights as I was watching the DAZN. Okay, cool. How was the DAZN card? Um, Shug is saying I saw a few clips of Hamzat after his self-imposed retirement, right? And then who was it? The leader of the Chechen leader who told him, "No, you're not done," or whatever he said. Okay, so Simo is saying, "Hello, big man." Okay, not sure if you're talking to Shug or, anyways, I'll make that assumption since I'm neither big nor a man. But what did you guys think of the UFC 308 from what you were able to catch of it? And Shug, how was that DAZN card? I didn't catch I haven't checked any highlights of that out yet. Shug says it was really intriguing, the UFC 308 card. And Simo says, sorry, okay. Apology accepted. Not sure. Simo, are you a fight fan? Okay, Matthew, not a great question, not appropriate. I don't know if you're, Matthew, I don't know if you're aware that YouTube does have some policies about that, so you might want to just take your comments elsewhere, go off, watch someone else's live stream. Right, who else do we have here? What did you guys think of the 308? Sugar's telling us the DAZN card was good. Prograde put up a good fight. Okay, but Catterall pulled ahead in the second part of the fight and showed his level. Okay, cool. Yeah, Catterall is, I mean, he's a real fighter, right? He comes to fight. Matthew, regardless of why you're saying what you're saying, not okay. So let's go back to the fight cards. 308, main event. What did you guys think of Max Holloway getting KO'd by Ilia Topuria? In my pre-fight breakdown, I did mention that Topuria has really nice, tight boxing. He's very patient. He takes very small steps. Kind of reminds me of Joe Louis, which is kind of a weird comparison, right? Because he's like a 145er versus a heavyweight. But what I really admire about Joe Louis's footwork is just all those very small controlled steps he would take. Joe Louis was always on balance, and that's why he was able to deliver sort of one-punch KO power. I think Ilya landed, in the sequence that ended the fight, it looked like he landed a nice straight right and then followed up with a perfectly placed left hook to the chin, and that was that for Max Holloway. I mean, just followed up on the ground, of course, but that left hook was so well placed that that just dropped Max. Shug is telling us that Catterall even dropped Prograis. Cool. Wow, 3 times? That's crazy. And um, his his feet were more educated. Okay, cool. Prograis took some suicidal risks to get back in the fight, but it worked against him. I think he's done as a top ten competitor. Okay, makes a lot of sense. And I also understand why Prograis would be willing to take huge risks if he's gotten dropped three times. That means he's got to win 4 rounds in a row, or he's got to get a KO. So he just figured, well, I guess maybe he just figured he'd throw some Hail Mary shots and try to get Catterall out of there. But Catterall is a very tough cookie. He's not going to go away easy, if at all. Um, so I was saying about Max Holloway versus Ilia Topuria. What I really like about what Topuria does is he makes these very minimalist bobs to either his left or his right. It's just barely. He doesn't turn his body. He doesn't overturn his body. He doesn't move his body too far off the center line. He doesn't try to rush and do it. He just calmly kind of shifts his body, and it's very classic boxing style. Some of the Dutch kickboxers also use that bobbing motion very effectively, especially from the Ramon Decker's school. Everybody out of that same sort of school of Dutch kickboxing made really good use of the bob. Now, one thing they did that Ilia doesn't do is the Dutch kickboxing schools would use the bob to load up for a body shot or a left hook, or off to the other side, load up for a right hand. Ilia doesn't do that, but he just very calmly does make the other person miss, and that just sucks energy out of the other fighter, in this case Max Holloway, because now Max is forced to use his own energy to stop his punch that's overextended and that completely missed. Now Max has to not only bring himself to stop, he's got to bring himself back into position to defend and attack. All right, so Shug is saying, oh, yeah, Shug was telling us about the Catterall versus Prograis fight. Did any of you guys, what did you guys think of Robert Whittaker getting stopped by Khamzat? I mean, I was also a little bummed about that, but also kind of expected that. And it sounds horrible that he got his jaw dislocated. I did catch him like at the very end, he was just tapping furiously, and it did not look like the choke was completely in, but it does make sense that he was tapping because his jaw was dislocated. Kind of just shows you how strong Khamzat is. Sugar's telling us Topuria was very patient. Absolutely. I think the whole key was beyond technique. It was his patience. And Shug says, and at one point he was reading Holloway's punches. Like, no doubt. See, the thing with Holloway, again, as I pointed out in my pre-fight breakdown, he does not keep a tight guard, right? Holloway has his hands a little bit lower and a little bit further out, and I think he likes to keep his hands there to kind of try to parry at a distance. But the disadvantage is that sometimes, now his opponents can see his punches coming, in a sense, because he has to kind of telegraph them. Okay, Jimmy is saying, some people want to know what kind of food I eat. Well, I try to eat as healthy as possible. So I try to eat clean, gluten-free, dairy-free, egg-free, but I'm not vegan. I do eat meat. I do eat red meat. You have to consume all the required amino acids, I think, especially if you're involved in sports or combat sports, because you need the amino acids that are found only in red meat. I think taurine is one of them. You need those amino acids to rebuild damaged tissue. So, Jimmy, I'm actually taking your question seriously, whether you meant it seriously or you were making a joke. I don't know, but there you have it. Do any of you guys adhere to a special kind of diet? Okay. They asked me if I'm a fan of Ryan Garcia. Well, I've met Ryan Garcia a couple of times. I met him originally. First time I met him, that was before he even turned pro. He was still a teenager. His brother met the whole family, in fact, and I like them. I mean, they're actually very nice folks. Treated me well. I met him more recently in his what for when he was training for Fortuna and for not so much. I wasn't there around so much when he was training for Tank Davis, but a little bit. But um, yeah, I mean, I'm a fan in the sense that I like Ryan. I like his family. They always treated me well, treated me kindly. So there's nothing for me, as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing for me not to like about them. And as far as what he's done with his boxing career and his sort of um, just his superstar brand career aspect, yeah, I mean, I have respect for that. Okay, so Sugar saying Ryan Garcia is truly a product of this generation. Oh, absolutely. Um, he understands how social media works, 100%, and he did everything possible to sell the fight with Haney. Absolutely, I think he carried it in a way. Yes, for sure. I mean, I honestly believe that he was, in fact, doing a lot of trolling, especially when people were like Teddy Atlas was going off about his mental health, this and that. And it was like, Teddy clearly showed that he doesn't understand social media, right? Whereas Ryan shows that he knows how to say things that may not show him in a good light, but it's going to get people to tune in or click. So Ryan doesn't mind making himself sort of the butt of his own joke to create clickbait on himself to get more eyeballs on the fight on him. And that he knows that's all part of um, his appeal to potential sponsors or advertisers or what have you. Is the more eyeballs he can draw to himself, the bigger of a commodity, Ryan Garcia is. So, that's why he does what he does. Um, and, to that point, Shug, even back when Ryan was 17, that is one thing I noticed about him, was that he had a real sort of like small screen camera presence. He was that's TikTok was called Musically at that time, and I saw a little clip of him like lip syncing to something. But even at the age of 17, it was like he clearly knew how to use filters well to get rid of his acne. He had this little sort of lip syncing dance thingy he was doing, and it was appealing, and I was really impressed with the fact that this 17-year-old kid knew how to sort of command presence on a phone camera um, in a funny little video, but as you said, that skill set and that knowledge kind of just carried him to where he is. um, Mr. KD Dunn or something. Hello, I'm doing well. How are you? Shug says, to put it in combat terms, Ryan Garcia is a fourth dan in the sacred art of online trolling. That's hilarious. Yes, he's very much up there. He's not taking any students though, and I don't know where his dojo is. That's funny. Yeah, I guess his dojo is just his online platforms, right? TikTok, YouTube, IG, Snapchat. Um, yeah, at this point, Ryan doesn't need boxing. That's for sure. If we're just talking about monetary support, but tell me, since we're here, did you guys want to talk about UFC, or is it just sort of not that? I mean, there's not really any controversy, right? UFC 308. So I don't know if there's much for us to talk about, but if anyone wants to commiserate or tell us what your favorite moments were, that would be cool. Um, I saw that double spinning back. Was it a back fist or back elbow by what does that guy call himself? Shava Claus or something? That was pretty crazy. Because up until that point, I wasn't really that impressed with that guy. He just has a weird sort of awkward bouncing style in terms of striking, but then it looked like out of nowhere he just pulls off this double spinning back elbow back fist move. Granted, I couldn't see the whole fight, so that was the fellow who knocked out Petrosian. Andy saying Holloway got robbed. You're a funny guy, Andy. Shug says from looking at the clips, UFC 308 looked like a straightforward card. Nothing crazy, but a stable card. Hamzat did what was expected for a guy on the comeback trail. Yeah, I mean, no surprises really. I don't think in terms of the ultimate winners. I suppose the only surprises maybe how they got the W, right? Um, Other than that, then there was that weird thing where that looked like a heavyweight guy like popped his knee and as he was like doing whatever he was doing prior to the fight actually starting, and then because he popped his knee or something, then he got subbed right off the bat, or I don't know. That was weird, but okay. Matt's telling us there was a fantastic fight on the prelims. Chris Barnett. Is that the one? Is that the heavyweight guy that jacked up his knee before the fight even started? Sugar saying Magomed Ankalaev got the unanimous decision, so it looks like the Caucasus Mountains continues to dominate. Yes, someone asked Dana White at the post-fight press conference about the fact that there are two fellows who hail from Georgia, currently UFC champions, and Dana, went on for a bit about yes, incredibly impressive. Now, here's the thing about Georgia and the Caucasus Mountains is Georgians have this like traditional wrestling where boys, men just wear a belt and a pair of shorts, so there's no clothing on the upper body, and then they both reach over each other's back and grab the belt in the back, and then from there they proceed to try to launch each other through the air and onto the ground. Um, and so right off the bat, when judo was introduced as an Olympic sport back in 1964, Georgians were able to fare well with that when that overgrip, that deep overgrip was allowed. Um, can't remember. There's a very famous Georgian judoka called Chachkach. I'm messing up the name. Chachvili, heavyweight Georgian judoka who would use that grip and then just launch his opponents through the air in kind of a back throw move. But um, it's my feeling that and Georgia has always been like kind of a stronghold for judo. There was always this very big men's judo tournament back in the day. Before women's judo was introduced to the Olympics, they kind of kept men and women's tournaments separate. Don't ask. But in any case, there was always this big tournament in Tbilisi, Georgia, and that was like the first time I've known of Tbilisi for decades because they were this like they held this really big judo tournament. And Sugar saying the Caucasus people have started to exert huge influence in MMA and boxing. It's going to take some time before people figure out how to counter that style. Oh yeah, I mean, mainly because they've been doing that for generations. I don't know if over a millennia. I have no idea how long this sort of traditional Georgian wrestling has been going on. It's really pretty cool if you check out. Pretty much every single culture has their own traditional wrestling style. Like, for example, check out Mongolian traditional wrestling. Theirs is kind of the opposite because they literally just have a pair of sleeves. There's no lapels. The sleeves are held together by this little rope thingy that they tie around their waist. And of course, they got shorts on. But that translates over to judo, whereas the Mongolian judoka will do, what we call 2-on-1. They'll grab the sleeve, their opponent's sleeve, with both hands, and then they execute these crazy throws because in their wrestling style, if your knees touch the ground, you're automatically DQ'd. So that would mean, for example, a Mongolian judoka can't do, or a Mongolian judoka who's doing Mongolian traditional wrestling would not do a drop seonage because their knees would touch the ground and they'd be DQ'd. So instead, the Mongolians have come up with these really creative throws where it looks like their back is exposed to the ground and almost going to touch, but they're able to keep themselves just inches off the ground and then exert enough torque to crank their opponent over. But yeah, if you guys are fight fans, check out both Georgian traditional wrestling and Mongolian traditional wrestling. It's a ton of fun. Tanjit is asking who's next for Khamzat. Matt says it should be Izzy. Interesting. I mean, I'm not sure if Khamzat wants just another fight before he goes for, well, Izzy's not a title fight, right? But before he goes for a bigger name or like a title shot, I guess it kind of depends on Khamzat and Team Khamzat, but I would want to take one more sort of non-big name, non-title fight first, and then take that bigger fight. But that's just how I would look at things. Okay. God Tender Loving Care says, shouting you out in my live stream now. Okay, cool. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. God Tender Loving Care, what do you usually stream about? In any case, back to the fight game. What did you guys think of UFC 308? Let me know. Did anybody else catch the DAZN card and see some boxing fights tonight? Are there any fights on the DAZN card that you recommend everyone check out, Shug? What do you think? Were there any must-see boxing fights tonight? Of course, jumping back to the traditional wrestling thing, of course, in Japan, the sort of traditional wrestling is sumo. Not necessarily a huge carryover to MMA or other fighting sports specifically, but it's also a lot of fun to watch. If you have never watched a sumo tournament, it's pretty cool because I won't say it's like power slap, but in a sense it's like power slap in that the action is over so quickly that you can watch literally a ton of sumo fights in one sitting, and it's just, I guess it's a lot of dopamine hits, as they would say now, right? Because it's just one big movement after another. If the rules are, if one sumo wrestler can get the other sumo wrestler to step outside that circular ring, then they automatically win. Of course, if they get them upended smashed into the sand, the ground, then they win also. There is some similarity with judo in that it's all about leverage, but it's just such a dramatic way to fight that it's kind of fun, I think. And then the other aspect with a lot of these traditional wrestling styles, or traditional wrestling period, from different cultures, is that there's like a cultural and spiritual aspect to it. So it's not a sport. It's more than a sport. It's part of the culture. There's often sort of music associated with um, the wrestling competition, and there may be sort of some sort of religious aspect tied in as well. Sugar's saying Campbell Hatton fight was entertaining. Oh, cool. Okay, so Ricky Hatton's son, and so was Prograis Catterall. The others were okay, but I was watching out for those two. Okay, nice. So Sugar's saying when I saw Prograis get dropped just after crossing his legs, oh my goodness, I thought, man, if Dee was here, she'd be shouting for her. Yeah, I would be like just wishing I could unsee somebody crossing their legs. I was just working with somebody today on boxing, and this individual also does wrestling. So I says, well, you know, it's the same rule in wrestling and boxing and judo and don't cross your legs ever. Never, ever, ever cross your legs because you're automatically putting yourself off balance. With judo, it's probably even more dramatic because if you even bring your feet together, you're just setting yourself up to get foot swept with what we call a dayashi barai, which means, foot sweep. Basically looks like the person stepped on a banana peel sideways and went flying up in the air. It's like they're horizontal, your head and your feet are like level, and then you come smashing down on the ground. So not only do you not want to cross your feet, you don't even want to bring them together. Yeah, so Sugar, I'm glad I didn't see that, but maybe I'll see it on the highlights or something. Highlights or lowlights, I don't know. What other fights are you guys looking forward to, either MMA or boxing, between now and the end of 2024? I can hardly believe it. We're pretty much at the end of October, and then it's just November, December going to fly by, and it'll be 2025. By the way, it sounds like, I'm not sure, but it sounds like maybe Skittles were one of the most popular Halloween candies in my little query I put out there, just out of curiosity. But yeah, I mean, I try not to eat candy, of course, and I try to avoid all those chemical colors because those are really, really bad. Maybe almost worse than the sugar. But as far as Halloween candy goes, I'm sure I would say some type of chocolate bar, probably my go-to favorite. Okay, Sugar's saying, I'm hoping for a John Jones return in MMA. Interesting. But in boxing, looking forward to Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano too. Oh, cool. Yeah, that was a great fight. And I hope it lives up to the first one. Yes, something tells me it will. I think there's and not so much that there's bad blood, but there's definitely a strong rivalry there. Um, yeah, I thought that was a great fight. That was, if you're a fight fan, you do want to check out Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano 1. By the way, Shug, when is that scheduled for the rematch? The fighting Marine says Holloway is doing well, I thought, but Ilya's power is unreal. Yeah, Holloway he was doing well. He was touching Ilya. He did land some good shots. He did throw kicks, which I thought was sort of one of the areas where he could kind of make a difference, right? Because I felt he's got stronger kicks or a bigger variety of kicks than Ilya, so he did utilize that. But I think in the end, just Ilya was just so patient and so precise, and just waited for exactly the right moment to throw hard shots. That um, I just don't want to say that Holloway. There's no way Holloway could prepare for it, but it looked like even the well prepared Holloway just it wasn't as if he made a glaring error. Like, we can't fault him in just fighting the way Max Holloway fights. You can't expect him to completely change his guard to a different position because that would just take him out of his own game. That's one of the things I felt happened with Bivol was by him changing from that traditional Eastern European guard to trying to do this. Did you guys notice he kept making these motions with his left hand like he wanted to take it off his forehead, but he knew he's been trained. Oh, you better glue your jab hand to your forehead. Oh, Sugar's telling us the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano rematch is November 15th, so just a few weeks out. It's the co-main to Tyson Paul. Oh, okay, right. The fight, I'm not sure if I'm gonna watch that or try to avoid it. Maybe I'll do a live stream for the women's fight only. I don't know. I'm just joking. Which I'm also interested in, just for the morbid curiosity. This is Shug. Like watching two 5-point fight for the right to mate. Okay, yeah, morbid curiosity with Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul. I get it. Yeah, it's kind of a curiosity thing. Yeah, I haven't decided if I'm gonna watch that or even break it down. I don't know. That's a tough one. It's one of those, like, it's hard not to watch, but then it's hard because you don't want to give it too much credence, particularly to Jake Paul. But anyways, that's just me. Hello to IHBGM18. Sugar saying trying to completely become a different fighter for one fight is risky. 100% agree with that. Like when I watch Andre Berto trying to shoulder roll and getting hit during and after the roll. Sheesh. Yeah, it's not Berto's style at all. The shoulder roll is unfortunately something that just has gotten emulated, not just by a world champion like Andre Berto, but just every dog and his grandma in the boxing gym seems to want to do that shoulder roll thing. And it's like, that's not only a black belt move, it's a high level black belt risky move. It's not something a beginner should be trying. It's like, first you better just learn to keep your hands up. That's kind of like the first step towards learning boxing defense. After that, then learn how to bob and weave. I mean, the last thing you want to start learning probably is the shoulder roll. But in any case, that's just because it's got such a high risk to it if you don't do it right. And most of these white belt types that are trying to do a shoulder roll don't do it right. They just try to copy what they see Floyd doing, because it's not just like a body position thing, it's the timing of it and your foot placement and knowing when to do it. Okay, so Shug says, and the guys doing the shoulder roll will have the chin up, right, not tucked in. Like, buddy, what exactly are you doing? Well, right, exactly. So if you're going to keep your chin up, you're sort of defeating the whole purpose of it. Guys who can shoulder roll already know how to just look at their opponent out of their eyebrows, so to speak. So they always have their chin down. But yeah, I mean, shoulder roll, if you don't get it right, either you're too close and you didn't turn, or you overturn and now they're in your blind spot, so when you turn back, you get nailed. It takes a lot of practice, and like I said, there's other defensive moves you need to learn. First one, keeping your hands up. Second one, I would say, would be weaving under the looping punches. Third thing, bobbing and dipping to avoid punches. Okay, Sugar's telling us that Floyd Mayweather's shoulder roll is very regular to him. It's not normal. He'll throw a left hand over a jab or to the body out of the roll, but you've got to have technique for it. Yeah, you definitely have to have technique for that, because the most sort of natural thing to throw off that shoulder roll would be the right hand, and that's how most of us learn to do the shoulder rolls, to set up the counter right hand. But for him to do the shoulder roll and throw a left, I mean, of course, that's part of the game, right? To catch somebody by surprise. So, yeah, I mean, Floyd is just not just a high level black belt, he's like a world class high level black belt. So, um, I, yeah, I'm not sure why so many young athletes think they can jump the line sort of in the learning process and just jump to the high level black belt stuff on day one. In my opinion, that's all part of the everyone gets a trophy mentality that the U.S. started doing with, believe it or not, what the UK, what you guys call soccer, I mean, what you guys call football and we call soccer, we started doing that with soccer for kids here in the United States. The soccer league came up with this whole notion that, oh, we're not going to keep score. Oh, everyone gets a trophy. Literally, like everybody wins at the end because we're not keeping score. We're I don't know what the idea that there was, that we're going to include everybody. We're not going to make anybody feel bad for losing. And all that did was start this whole movement of enabling young people. Okay, so Shug says, have you ever employed the shoulder roll in any fights? Not per se. I mean, I have used it to like jab right hand, roll, come straight back, right hand, left hook, but not just the shoulder roll the way Floyd Mayweather does it, where he just kind of stays there a bit and kind of looks at his opponent. Yeah. Let's see. The fight I can remember that in would be, I think it's on my YouTube channel, versus Zaganis 2, I think. There was a third, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think I had a third fight with Zaganis, but I don't have that film, or never got that film. But versus her in Louisiana, I think I do recall doing that move because I know that that left hook did a lot of damage to her eye. Anyways, because I remember seeing her with the ice pack like this at dinner, afterwards, and the next day at breakfast. Any case, so yeah, so check out, if you want, you can check out Hamaguchi's Aganis 2, and that's sort of my take on the shoulder roll. It's not really a shoulder roll for the sake of just doing that motion. It's just to come back with the right hand, left hook. Okay, so Shug's saying, just like in the Tyson era, so many fighters thought they could do a peekaboo, yeah, and bob and weave, but not keep any of the discipline. Yeah, I mean, the peekaboo style was so well suited to Mike, because look at his physique. He's a shorter heavyweight, and he's very stocky, and yet he's very fast. So he could make explosive movements or rapid movements with that peekaboo style to slip. He slips so quickly, and then he pendulum steps to create an angle, and then you're done, right? Because he's coming with that uppercut, or he's coming with something. So yeah, you don't want to be a copycat ever. You want to look at the principle underneath whatever that fighter is doing. Notice Tyson's footwork. Unfortunately, that gets cut out of the frame a lot because everyone's focused on his hands and his knockouts. But if you watch Mike Tyson's footwork, it's incredible, especially the way he creates angles. Shug says, we'll check that out. Cool, yeah. No, now I'm motivated to see it. Yeah, I mean, I really, Tyson was definitely a student of the game, kind of imbued by his first trainer, right? I mean, I think probably a lot of us have heard the story about Tyson just watching film a lot, like every night, doing his homework, learning about old school fighters, just studying what they did. I think unfortunately for Mike, because of his the sort of negative aspects of his sort of boxing career and life, like the whole jail, running in with the law. Not to minimize all that, but we kind of then forget the fact that he was a true student of the game of boxing, of the art of boxing. Uh, Shug says the 83, 85 prime. Yeah, and Tyson was a defensive whiz who used that to set up the offense 100%. In fact, a lot of color commentators were speculating he had no chin as he didn't get hit. That's funny. Yes, I remember that was the era when we were all annoyed because a Mike Tyson pay-per-view cost whatever it cost, and the whole thing was over within like literally minutes. Um, so, uh, anyways, that was just kind of the the cliche is like, why am I paying for a pay-per-view and I'm only going to get to see, 60 seconds of action because Tyson's going to KO this person so fast. I mean, that was just when he just looked absolutely indestructible, right? Incredible. And props to his trainer, because I'm thinking that when Mike Tyson first walked into his gym, his trainer had so many years and had such an eye at that point, decades of working in boxing. He must have seen that this young 14-year-old Mike Tyson, he had this like incredible lump of clay out of which to mold, potentially a greatest of all time, right? And sadly, he passed before he could see his sort of vision be fulfilled in Mike Tyson becoming the youngest heavyweight champ ever. Um, but I think he put his all into he put his all into developing Mike into the machine that Mike became. Sugar saying, yeah, the Mike Tyson pay-per-view era was huge. We as a family would spread the cost of the pay-per-view and as a friend's use a friend's TV for viewing. Yeah, that was the kind of thing you did, right? Like you made it into a party so you gal could chip in a few bucks. Just out of curiosity, Shug, do you remember what the pay-per-view was? Was it like I can't remember what it was now, but do you remember? Just wondering. Cause yeah, I mean it's been years since I've done a pay-per-view, but now that it's approaching $100, I think that's crazy. Shug said, D, if you saw a raw talented um, post amateur / Olympic D Hamaguchi at the gym, what advice would I give her? Interesting. Um, you mean as I'm gonna assume you mean in terms of like developing a pro career? Uh that's a great question. I would say stay as busy as possible in terms of fighting. I would say not very helpful to know that it's a dirty pro business. I don't know. Maybe I would say, try MMA just because uh, there seems to be a little bit more opportunities for women in MMA than boxing still. But that's a great question, Sugar. Appreciate it. And Sibitang David says hi, heart heart. Hi, David. Shug saying the Mike Tyson Carl the Truth Williams pay-per-view was $39.99. Dang, and we were crying, we were carping about it. Still bought it though. Yeah, I mean $40 back then was significant. I mean, can't remember the cost of a Big Mac back then, but you probably could have bought 30 Big Macs for $40 or something. I don't know. Yeah, but 39.99 was a lot for a pay-per-view. In my opinion, which doesn't matter, but I think that if they brought the cost of a pay-per-view down, they could potentially wind up making more total, because if you lower the price, maybe more people would buy it. Maybe it would be more accessible to more people. All right, tell me more about what if any UFC fights you guys are want to see or are looking forward to. So I think we're all would like to see John Jones. Don't know if that'll happen. Are any of you guys really interested in seeing Connor back in the ring, or back in the cage, or the ring for that matter? Or is he just sort of gone poof off the radar? Sugar saying, yeah, 39.99 and 89 was like getting a finger lopped off. Yeah. Um, this was the literal definition of costing an arm and a leg. Yeah, I mean, again, right. I do remember doing the whole sort of get together with friends to kind of all chip in on the cost of pay per view, and then maybe get a couple pizzas or something. Um, Suzerain Cecil is saying what you think of Regis Prograis tonight. Well, I didn't see it, Cecil, but Sugar was saying that he got dropped 3 times by Catterall. So I will check that out after we jump off of this, and maybe I'll do a breakdown of that uh, either tomorrow or early next week. The mindset is saying Avengers Assemble. Okay. Suzerain Cecil's asking, do I think Regis Prograis is good? I think he's good. I think he just seems a little small for the division. And unfortunately for him, he just hasn't been active enough, I feel, lately. So yeah, I'm not sure what's next for him. Um, Sugar's saying I'd like to see Conor McGregor back, but I think he's so distracted with outside stuff and the frustration in his contract with the UFC. He doesn't look like he's returning this year. Yeah, I would tend to agree. If we haven't heard anything yet, I don't think it's going to be announced like he's going to fight in December. Sugar's saying I think I think Prime Regis Prograis is the one that fought Josh Taylor in WBSS in the final. Since then, he's tapered off. Yeah, I don't know what his story is really. I haven't really followed his career that closely. I think he does have the skill set, but I think, I don't know if it was just sort of business move that he decided to move up, or, but sometimes I can understand you're going to move up to try to make bigger dollars, or you're offered a bigger purse, but you have to understand also that in this boxing business, sometimes they're making you offers that are not in your best interest, because you're going to be used as cannon fodder to feed whoever they're trying to build up. So, I mean, as much as it sucks because that's the only thing you're getting offered, sometimes you actually have to turn that down. Or sometimes it's really in your better interest to turn it down, because if you get KO'd or just manhandled, that's not going to help you in the long run, even though maybe you made 10 times more money than you ever made thus far. Easy to say for me when I'm not the one that has to try to cover all that fighter's bills, but it's just one of those things where you don't want to short sell yourself, right? You and your management shouldn't be looking to make a quick buck out of sort of selling you short either. Like, you guys should be on the same page as far as your longevity in the game goes. Okay, Sugar's saying, and if McGregor returns, at what weight? Yeah, good question. At 155, he's a terror, but his stamina is a problem. 170 pounds or near there, he's not as fearsome. He's a smaller man. Where does he go? Yeah, and at this point, I think he's well north of 170, especially with all those, you know, especially with his big bulking up period he went through with whatever, what other enhancements he was consuming or not. I don't know. Um, Great question. I mean, at this point, I don't even know that could Conor McGregor get fired up about fighting somebody in the UFC, um, given everything else he's got going on, business wise and personally, I guess, family. Maybe the fight game, maybe there's nothing that can sort of draw his interest and motivate him to put himself through the hell of a training camp. And can't really blame him. You got to have some sort of driving force to pull you pull yourself through a training camp, because at some point, no matter what, if you're doing the training camp right, it's gonna just be horrible. Like everything's gonna suck. You're gonna feel crappy physically, emotionally, and mentally, and you just have to get over that hump to get to the other side, and then hopefully, like taper towards your fight, and feel great for the fight. Suga's saying he had a thick accent before, but now I need subtitles for understanding anything. Oh, that's hilarious. And he rambles a great deal, so I'm wondering if something is happening to him behind the scenes. That's very interesting. I mean, it seems like a lot of footage he's in party situations, so I don't know if, like, is he drunk? Is he high? Is he, hopefully he's not punchy. But yeah, I don't know if Connor, um, consumes intoxicating substances, or what his deal is. But yeah, that's not a good sign if you can't understand them. All right, guys. So we've been on here for almost an hour. I think about 5 more minutes we'll wrap this up. But let me know if there's any other topics you guys want to talk about. If you've been enjoying the breakdowns, you're always welcome to leave a super thanks, either here or on the channel itself. Um, you're always welcome to join our membership side, of course, and you're always welcome to go to buymeacoffee.com and buy coffee for $5 US. Uh, Sugar saying, "D, have you ever seen a fighter's decline and tried to have a quiet word with him for their own good?" That's a great question. Well, I've seen, I mean, when I've seen fighters decline, it's more in terms of just how their career goes, more so than their mental health. So I've never been in a position where it was so glaring, like them slurring their words or something like that, that I felt the urgency to say, hey, maybe enough's enough. But what I have noticed is, or what I have observed over time, is just fighters hitting a peak of, say, the purse that they can command, and then over time, maybe with a loss or this or that, like then it's just a rapid downhill, and so they go from fighting potentially for six figures to down to four, like low four, mid four figures, and that can be a problem if they've sort of already spent those big purses. Some of these guys spend the purse before they even get paid. So then they actually get paid and they have nothing in their pocket because they owe everybody all over the place because they were borrowing against it. It's kind of not a good place to be in. Suzerain Cecil is saying, questions about an older fighter. What was your opinion of Evander Holyfield? What made him so good? Um, could he fight today's fighters? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and I think any of the fighters from that era could could fight, and like the heavyweights, if we're talking about heavyweights, could certainly fight today's heavyweights. I, I'm a little more old school, so I kind of am biased towards favoring old school fighters who came up before YouTube. Let's put it that way. So there's none of that distraction. There's none of this social media distraction of, oh, I've got to broadcast my sparring sessions. That immediately takes your mind out of what's literally right in front of you in the ring, which is all you should be focused on. You shouldn't be thinking about, oh, am I going to get a highlight from my Instagram? Am I going to get, is this going to look good when I post it on YouTube? You should just be focused on the body right in front of you, and dishing out punishment to them and not absorbing any punishment yourself, and listening to your corner. So Evander is an interesting study, because he was actually a cruiserweight that then moved up to heavyweight, right? And the other thing with Evander was he was never intimidated by Mike Tyson, because he's the one that made the Olympic team and Mike Tyson did not. Mike Tyson was actually sent by his trainer, Customato, told him, hey, you didn't make the Olympic team, but you're going to go and you're going to be basically the sparring partner for Evander Holyfield. So Evander got to, I don't say beat up on, but he was, using Mike Tyson to sort of like warm up for the Olympic Games. So that's why I think Evander was never mentally intimidated by Mike Tyson, whereas so many Mike Tyson's opponents were, they were petrified and basically deer frozen in the headlights before they even got in the ring with Mike. Suzer and Cecil is asking, oh, sorry. So that's my response to Suzer and Cecil. Sugar's saying, I think Evander Holyfield could unify in this area. Unify in this era. That's an interesting point. And possibly go undisputed. The reason being his stamina, determination, inside fight game, and going in the dirt when other guys did. Going in the dirt when other guys did. Rough customer. Yes, definitely. I mean, obviously anybody who can withstand having part of their ear bitten off has got to be one tough dude. Suzer and Cecil. Oh, would Deontay Wilder or Joshua be good competition for? For Holyfield. No. Deontay Wilder is even more flawed than Joshua. They both have terrible footwork. Holyfield would just. He would take them both apart, I think. Nick is saying, don't forget about Mike Tyson. My name is Nick David Hagen. Hi, Nick. So I'm not sure what you're referring to when you say don't forget about Mike Tyson. We were originally talking a lot about Mike Tyson. Biased Gotti asking, did you watch 308? I didn't get to watch it live, so I just watched the clips that I could catch on YouTube afterwards. Hopefully at some point we get to see the whole Topuria Holloway and all of Khamzat Whitaker. Shug said, Holyfield outside the ring is a quiet church-going guy, but in the ring he was way rougher than some people remember. Yeah, I mean, that was Mike Tyson's sort of explanation for why he bit Holyfield's ear, was because Holyfield kept headbutting him. He didn't headbutt him the way Victor Ortiz kind of headbutted Floyd, but Holyfield was very clever with how he used his head. I mean, this is an old boxing cliche, is that you use your head like a third fist, so you actually can manipulate your opponent, or smack them with your head if you know how to do it subtly, and so that's not blatant. Nick says, I'm sorry about that, love. That's okay. It's a live stream, so people are welcome to come in and out as they please. Suzer and Cecil is saying, how bad are Joshua and Wilder? It seems like our generation of heavyweights aren't amazing. Well, um, Cecil, sometime when you get a chance, check out some of my breakdowns of either Wilder's or Joshua's fights, probably the pre-fight breakdowns. Um, I talk specifically about their poor footwork. And if you have poor footwork, you never have a strong foundation, right? You can't build a mansion on a weak foundation. You can, but I mean, it's not going to last very long. Eventually, it's going to fall down, right? Well, same thing with boxing. If your feet aren't positioned properly, if you don't have good balance, you might have all this upper body torque, which is what I think both Wilder and Joshua have, a lot of upper body torque, which means from, but they're not engaging their feet. Joshua, you can tell, can't engage his feet because his timing's off. He doesn't step and jab at the same time. He's kind of all over the place. And Wilder's just a mess with his footwork. His feet are way too wide. Look at his legs. They're like toothpicks relative to the rest of his body. So neither one of these guys is making use of what we call the posterior chain, which would mean from your foot touching the ground all the way up through your legs, hips, back muscles, and out your arm. They're not using that to generate power because they have some very weak links in their posterior chain in terms for Deontay Wilder. And for Anthony Joshua, he's not coordinating his steps with his punches, so he loses the effect of trying to use his posterior chain. Suge said Tyson was known for using elbows inside and hitting after the bell, and in the fight, Evander was doing the same, and Mike was not pleased. LOL. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing with when you get to higher level fighting, you need to learn how to fight dirty. You need to learn how to fight dirty and disguise it, or just not be blatant about it. And you need to learn how to deal with someone who's fighting you dirty. Sugar's saying heavyweights today are huge and strong, yes, but they depend on these two things for the detriment of their technique. Okay, during the drilling the basics and staying active. Tyson once fought 19 times in 12 months. Yes, the staying active aspect, that's really where you crystallize your learning, is in the actual fight. Because, that's where the tire meets the road, as they say, where the rubber meets the asphalt. Like, for sure, with certainty, that person was trying to knock your block off, and yet you were still able to do X, Y, or Z, then you've got that technique that works for you. UWU Guru says, remember guys, if you take advice from a woman, then you'll fight like a woman. Okay, well, I mean, that's fine. Susan and Cecil, that's interesting. So how did Wilder and Joshua get so successful if they're so flawed? Well, because they're able to generate a lot of upper body torque. So that was their differential, right? Was their power punching. There's also very clever matchmaking, right? But Cecil, go to any old school boxing trainer and ask them, should I try to copy Wilder or Joshua's footwork? I mean, if they're going to be honest with you, they'll say no. Okay, Charles Riley says, seems Wilder and Joshua could have learned a lot watching Hearn. I'm assuming you mean Thomas Hearn's linear power delivery. Yeah, right, exactly. Here's the thing with Wilder. He did have Mark Breland as his trainer, who's also like one of those long, lanky guys, right? And had a fantastic jab right hand, just superb. Mark Breland knocked guys out in the amateurs, meaning with the bigger gloves and the headgear. Mark Breland KO'd guys with his jab right hand. That's how good he was. And of course, Wilder fired him because he threw in the towel, saving him. All right. Jalen Davis is saying boxing has been watered down. I think many things have been watered down. I blame it all on the everyone gets a trophy mentality. Let's enable everybody. Shug says Wilder and AJ were also successful based on the time they belonged to. True. Where the heavyweight division was somewhat hollow. Yeah. Right, exactly. I mean, sort of the matchmaking, the idea that the promoter knows they have something that they can build, right? An Olympic medalists, that's a backstory they can kind of leverage a little bit and pull in sponsorships or raise money, what have you. So remember, the promoter wants to invest in a fighter and get other people to invest in a fighter, then they're beholden to build that fighter and ensure that they don't lose for as long as they can. So, okay. Susan Cecil asks, would you say Hearn is more fundamentally, oh yeah, than them or similar? Tommy Hearns is way more fundamentally sound than either Wilder or Joshua, by far and away. I mean, if Hearns is a black belt, then those two guys, in terms of footwork, if Hearns is a black belt, then those two guys are like, I don't know, yellow belts, orange belts, are like just barely above beginner with their footwork. Sugar says, and it looks like Wilder was generating the power from his back in some crazy counterintuitive fashion. Yeah, for sure. Wilder has no legs, so he can't generate power from the ground up. He's generating it from his core and his upper body. Jason, I don't know. I don't know the answer to your question. I don't know what you're asking. Does that have something to do with fighting or not? Jalen Davis, why don't we get action-packed fights, exchanges in modern era? I mean, that you got to ask the fighters that, but I've seen that in the gyms as well, where two guys will be sparring. If you look at sparring back in the day, say 90s, 2000s, when two guys are sparring, they're basically fighting, except no one's gonna go for the knockout. If a guy gets hurt, the trainer's gonna pull his fighter off that fighter and allow him to recuperate. They're not gonna try to KO somebody or TKO somebody in the gym. But you had two guys really going at it. Now, if you go in the gyms and watch sparring, it's almost like these two dudes have this agreement not to really go after each other. Like they'll stand there and they'll stare at each other and circle around the ring and throw 5 punches each in the round. And those punches will be single jabs. So it's just not the same mentality. I think part of that is neither guy wants to look bad. I don't know what it is, but there's just something that's been lost on this generation of fighters. Cecil saying, how would you see Usyk and Fury? Are they very low level? No, Usyk and Fury are higher level. They have good footwork. Usyk has really remarkable footwork, and so does Fury. Jalen is saying pity pat nonsense. Pity pat nonsense meaning, I mean, if you're referring to the modern era, the current era of fighters, I would say yes. Unfortunately, a lot of them are. Sugar saying David Hay is a perfect example of leaving it all in the gym. There's footage of him having gym wars, but he'd be too injured to carry through the fight. Yes. There's the late great strength coach, Charles Poliquin, would blame the fact that David Hay was vegan and point to the injuries as a direct result of his veganism, because I think someone brought up diet before. I said eat red meat because it contains the amino acid taurine, there's others. That's just the one I can remember. But you need those amino acids in order to repair tissue. If you are a vegan and you're an athlete, there's a strong chance that you'll either continue to get injured, like you'll be chronically injured, simply because you haven't given your body the essential amino acids it needs to repair, not just muscle, but the tissue, the ligaments. Okay. So yeah, David Hay probably could have, if he'd addressed his diet, maybe his career would have gone differently. I don't know, that's a big leap, but just a thought. Suzerain Cecil is saying, could Usyk compete with Holyfield or Tyson? Well, I mean, Usyk is a small heavyweight. I think he could compete with them. I don't know that he would do that well. In my opinion, I think Holyfield or Tyson could knock Usyk out. But I mean, I think he'd put on a good show, as they say. Like he would put it in a good effort, and just the fact that he's so busy in the ring and can create angles, I think it could have made potentially interesting fights, right? The boxers versus a power puncher type thing. Jalen is saying, I feel like back then fighters were trying to hurt their opponent. Yeah, well, it's kind of the name of the game. So back then, if we're talking 90s, 2000s, when guys would spar, or even girls, sometimes they're trying to hurt each other in the gym too, because that's the whole point of the game. You're trying to hurt them, but you're not trying to knock them out. If we can be sort of understand that distinction, um, because you need to conjure that up for a fight. You can't practice pulling your punches all the time in the gym and then expect to go into a fight and be a killer. Jalen is saying Usyk would be good, but not how we think and know of him in this era. Okay, interesting thought. Cecil was saying, would you say Crawford could compete with Hearns or Ray or Hagler? No, I don't think Crawford could compete with those guys. Just, not that I don't respect Crawford, but that era was just a different era where people fought more often. They weren't trying to protect their O, and those guys just. I can't remember if did any of those guys fight a 15 round. I think they might have. I think the 15 round title fight might have just gotten phased out right around that time. But if you've conditioned yourself to fight 15 rounds, that's a whole nother level. It just sounds like, oh, just 3 more rounds. But yeah, sometimes the difference in a fight happens in the 13th, 14th, or 15th round. Okay, thanks. Cecil saying Ray Robinson versus Hearns was 15. Sugar Ray versus Hearns won, and Sugar Ray versus Duran won. Yeah, so no, I don't think Terrence could hang with those guys. I don't think he could hang with Duran for sure. For sure, I think Duran would have just, yeah, like hurt him badly. Jason's asking, do you think most top fighters of today are on anabolic steroids? Interesting question. I think I would like to think they're not. That's maybe a naive statement, but they are supposed to be being tested, right? So is it easy to beat a test? I mean, if you know the test is coming, then you can try to circumvent it. But that's a whole nother aspect, right? Because I think that this generation in general looks for a quick fix. So if they think steroids or PEDs are a quick fix, that's the direction people go in, right? If using ChatGPT to write my essay for school is a quick fix, and that's the direction I'm going in, even if there's a high likelihood I'm going to get busted, because anybody can read. ChatGPT prose does not sound like human prose. But in any case, point being, I think a lot of people who aren't even top fighters are on stuff, like just guys I see in the gym, because it's just a trending thing, right? Like, isn't that a big TikTok thing where all these gym bros in their 20s are giving out advice on their cycle and what they're on, this and that? So it's become way too mainstream for even high school kids. You hear high school kids talking about taking stuff, and it's like, that to me makes zero sense, and I think it's really dangerous, because you don't want to shut off your own hormonal system when it's starting to peak. But that's a whole nother ball of wax. Jalen is saying Wilfred Benitez would beat Crawford. Oh, interesting. That's an interesting hypothesis. I would, I mean, I'm I'm not even sure what weight division Wilfredo Benitez fought like it. Did he fight at 154? But he was certainly a skillful fighter. So Cecil saying, when you saw Crawford beat Spence so bad, what did I think of Spence? I kind of sort of was wondering going into that, is Spence still damaged goods? Only he knows the answer to that question. Only Spence and his team know for sure if he was, did he ever get back to, himself before that car crash? Because that was horrific. Jason saying Victor Conte sure knows how to, yeah, Victor Conte for sure knows how to beat a drug test. So, there you have it, right? Whether it's a masking agent or masking agent of a masking agent, I don't know. It also depends on the testing agency, right? Like there's USADA, VADA, and then the World Anti-Doping Association. Now, I don't think the World Anti-Doping Association tests fighters per se or athletes. I think they just set the standards, and then it's up to these other agencies to actually go out there and administer tests. But that's a whole nother ball of wax because there's a cost involved in doing thorough testing for PEDs in athletes in any sport, right? Like who's supposed to bear the burden of that cost? Well, when it comes to boxing, the commission doesn't want to pay for it, the promoter doesn't want to pay for it, so it's a tough one. Jalen's saying, I wish fighters were more active. 1-2 times a year is pathetic. Yeah, well, I mean, that's just the time we live in, right? Like, nobody expects these guys to fight more than 3 times a year is a lot for a world-class fighter. But, as we said back in the day, so that's why back in the day, you have fighters like Archie Moore, Joe Louis, Sugar Ray Robinson. These guys had over 100 fights. I mean, Archie Moore had over 200 fights. Archie Moore had over 140 KOs. So how can you compare the artistry that someone develops with that much ring experience to, say modern day? There's just no comparison. But we've also bought into this myth of the fact that if somebody has no losses, then that automatically makes them better than somebody who had losses. Well, all these guys with over 100 fights have a loss or more, but that's not really the point. The point is they were great because of how much time they put into learning their craft and executing their craft under pressure in the ring. But I would agree with you, Jalen. I wish fighters today were more active. It's just it's hard to see that shift because again, that would take the promoter's cooperation, and it would take people giving up this myth of the O cannot go, and it would take the big promoters allowing room for smaller promoters to throw cards in between these big fights where guys could take smaller fights like against maybe lesser opponents in a smaller venue, that type of thing. But right now we just don't have that. We just have like the upper level fight game, and then we had just very local. But you need all these sort of different stages of levels of fight promotion in order to really build and sustain the sport. Because now all that's happening is the big promoters like Golden Boy, Matchroom, Frank Warren, Top Rank, PBC, they'll sign their guys. And then what they do is they just use every other fighter who's like an entry level or whatever you want to call them, a guy who isn't signed to them, they're going to use them as cannon fodder for the guys that they signed because they've invested in the guys they signed. They got to protect their interest. So in years past, all these lower level fighters who are not signed to the top promoters, well, they could still fight and make their way up through these smaller cards. But it's like at this point, especially post COVID, COVID seemed to have killed a lot of the small promoters, where it just made it unsustainable for them. That plus insurance, plus this and that. By eliminating all these like little local promoters, you've eliminated opportunities for these entry level sort of lower level fighters. So now their only opportunities to get used as cannon fodder for, hopefully one day I can be used as cannon fodder on a PBC card, and make, I don't know, 4 digits, maybe very low 5 digits. Not sure what they're paying, but yeah, unfortunately that's just where the game is at the moment. Cecil's asking, did I think Roy Jones was best middleweight? Oh, do I think Roy Jones was the best middleweight ever? He was amazing. Roy Jones is an incredible fighter, boxer, period. And I did have the opportunity to watch him train once when he came to Gleason's gym with his crew. And what struck me is, as unorthodox and as spontaneous as he seems when he fights in the ring, those hands down kind of crazy movements, when he's practicing, he is so structured. Like, he would go through these movements with his teammates, and it reminded me of seeing or doing a karate kata, like where you go up and down the floor, everybody in unison doing exactly the same motion. Well, that's what Roy Jones was doing in the ring with these sort of shadow boxing movements and taking steps. He had like 3 other guys doing it in sync with him in the ring, and so it was really interesting contrast between how Roy Jones trains versus how he fights. Like, he doesn't practice that stuff in the ring. He practices very structured technique, and then he's able to go and do his freeform thing. But was he the best middleweight ever? That's a great question. I would have to think about that for a little bit. See, so I also think that James Toney as a middleweight was pretty awesome. Shug says, man, Wilfred Benitez was epic. His face-offs could melt lead. That's funny. He'd be a terror today. Might be fined for holding up the fight or not going to the weigh-in. That's funny. Yeah, he's truly an old school fighter. Shug saying, is there any payday that could get you off the couch and back in your boots? Or no, I was just thinking about that. Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, Shug, it was never money, like, because there just was no money in women's boxing. So basically, by being a professional boxer, it's like I'm losing money if you consider the training expenses. But that's not really the point. So it's really not the payday; it's really the opportunity. I'll put it that way. If every fighter wants like a decent opportunity, meaning we want it to be fair. Like, we want the other person to make weight. We want the referee to be unbiased. We want, the officials and the judging, the commission to be, above board, shall we say. And that's truly, I think, what most fighters would pick over, say, a payday, especially when for women's boxing, it's not really something we can't really leverage that and say, well, I'm not going to fight if you don't pay me more money. And they're just like, well, we don't need you, so see ya, right? Here's your hat, what's your hurry? Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Susan Cecil's saying, what's it feel like fighting in a ring for you? I mean, at this point, I mean, it feels comfortable. I mean, I spar a couple times a week, so of course, you're always going to be more nervous for a fight. There's always going to be butterflies, and it can be very nerve-wracking from the day before, like after the weigh-in until the moment you actually step in there. But once I get in there, it feels like home. I guess you could call it that. Shug says, I get it, but if Turkey Al Sheikh came in with a blank checkbook and wanted you to get some top 10 fighter, would you not consider it? Yeah, of course I could. If Turkey Al Sheikh came in with a check, period, um, I'd do it. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. As long as it's a woman, my size. So, Suge, if you can make it happen, let me know. Scissor and Cecil says, when you're fighting, are you thinking or is it all instincts? I mean, you're thinking a little bit, but it is that sort of weird area between thinking and instinct, because it's like you're recognizing stuff, but you're sort of you're in that sort of automatic zone of like automatic reaction a little bit, because you've been sparring, preparing so much and drilling so much. Sugar saying, rolling on the floor, laughing. Let me see what I can come up with. Okay, if you got an inside track to Turkey, that would be awesome. I mean, I've been calling for Dane White to sign me, but if Turkey's interested, that'd be cool too. Jason's saying, I don't think Turkey likes women boxing. No, he did. Didn't he just put on the first women's boxing in Riyadh? I can't remember who they were, but on the last Riyadh season card, I thought there was female. But Susan and Cecil saying, do you feel the punches at all, or too much adrenaline? I mean, I think we feel the punches, but yeah, there's certainly a lot of adrenaline going. The adrenaline is just cranked up from the opening bell to probably a little while after the last bell. But I mean, you do feel the thud. You feel more than punches or headbutts or head clashes, because this is like a rock. So if you smash foreheads with someone, it's like you just smash your head into a rock. Now this part of your head is soft and vulnerable, right? But this area here, yeah, it's hard. Shug said, yeah, Turkey had Sky Nicholson. That's right, Sky, and was it an Australian versus a UK woman? Did I get that right? It was a decent fight. Yes, I did catch clips of that. It was kind of like the classic boxer versus puncher, if I'm correct, with Sky being the sort of left-handed boxer. Went the distance, but Nicholson was quite dominant. Okay, yeah, I think I remember in the clips that she'd be moving away and then like tag her opponent, like counter shots, as her opponent would kind of try to was the pressure fighter, trying to make her way in, and Sky would counter punch. Susan and Cecil, what was your fighting style? I wish I could see you fight. That'd be cool. Well, you can see Cecil. If you go on my YouTube channel, scroll to where it says fights or boxing, look at all the thumbnails with the purple outlines. Those are all fights. Most of them are mine. There's some other fights there from like other folks, like Golden Gloves. But yeah, do check it out. Omar, do female boxers use 8-ounce and 10-ounce gloves like the male boxers do? Yes. 8-ounce for the lighter weights, 10-ounce for the heavier weights. Great question. Yes. Well, guys, we've actually gone past the hour that I thought this was going to last, but let's see. We still have a few folks here. Again, anything else? Any other thoughts on UFC 308 or upcoming boxing or upcoming UFC fights? Susan Cecil says, did I fight like Wilder? Okay, no, that's funny. No, I'm not that like that. I'm not a long, lanky fighter. I'm more of a compact fighter. So Charles Riley is saying, what I remember from what little competition I had, it was always odd later. That seems. My hearing faded away, but sight, etc., was increased. What about you? Oh, I understand what you mean about the hearing, because you're kind of like, there's probably a lot going on out there in the audience, but you're not really hearing that. But yeah, your pupils are probably dilated, so you're like taking in all that information, and you're your central nervous system is working probably overtime, right? During that 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, whatever it is, it's like your CNS, your nervous system is just cranked to the max. Yeah, Sugar saying, could not imagine D shouting bomb squad. Right, yeah, not my thing. Susan Cecil's laughing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like a one punch straight right hand, try to knock you out fighter. That wouldn't really, that wouldn't serve me very well. So, Cecil saying, who are the fighters you base your style on? Well, I mean, I mostly just tried to listen to my original pro boxing coach, who was Lennox Blackmore, who was just very classic, like wanted he advocated for what he would call an in and out style, meaning you get in, you throw your combinations, you get out, create an angle, come right back in, more punches, just sort of very I don't think that, I don't know if you can label it a style, but yeah, I didn't really try to copy anybody per se, but probably a good person for me, being the consistently shorter fighter, would be like a Joe Frazier, where you just constant motion, bobbing and weaving. Hello, Ben. Yeah, I'm not going to say it. Your first time here. Well, welcome. I'm probably only going to extend this a couple more minutes, everybody, just because. Shug says, I checked your box rec. You've got a KO on the record. Is your box rec correct? That should be the last fight versus Nunes. That fight is posted on my YouTube. It says Tijuana, Alexa Nunes. So yeah, that was a stoppage. Cecil says, is it true that fighting styles are based on your personality? No, not necessarily. I mean, in a sense, yes. But I mean, it also depends who your trainers were, who first developed you. That has a big impact on it. I mean, because otherwise, if it was all just personality based, then everybody would have their own style, period, right? But I do understand your question, and yes, there's definitely like an aspect of one's personality coming out in how they actually fight. People used to say that very much so for judo. That sort of used to be a kind of sensei thing to say, is like, that they could tell who you were by just like watching you move around on the judo mat, and they could like discern stuff about you as a person because of how you move around and do your judo. Shug said, if we got that long money, it would have to be you versus Sinicia Superbad Estrada. She recently retired, so it would be even. Well, except I don't know if she's going to come down to 102. Maybe she is. Charles Riley, have a nice weekend. Rest. Who knows, you may get a check next week. All right, Charles, good point. Caesar and Cecil says you are an in-and-out fighter. Yeah, I mean, that's what, that's basically the style that Lennox Blackmore chose to teach. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you all tuning in tonight. I'm going to bid you guys all good night or good morning, depending on where you are, in about a minute. So any final thoughts, boxing or MMA related? Remember, you can always, check us out. So please do subscribe to our channel, HamaguchiFight, and hit the notification button so you know when I post a breakdown. Of course, always trying to post shorts multiple times in a day. Omar says, when was my last boxing bout? A couple years ago. Shug said, thank you so much for this live, D. Looking forward to 50K subs next. Yes, thank you so much, Shug. Please, I appreciate your support. Please share the channel with your boxing and MMA buddies. Um, Susan Cecil says, I'm going to watch your fights. Okay, cool. Thank you. There's a few of them on my channel. Yeah, just look for those purple thumbnails and you'll be sure to find them. Cecil says, thanks for your live. Very patient, like your hair small. Thank you so much, Cecil. It's really good to meet you. And so thank you to all of you guys who tuned in. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you commenting. Please do consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Like I said, hit the notifications so we can beat the algorithm. So thanks again and good night for now. I'll see you soon. Good night.